Thanks for joining this afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the kickoff meeting for the Partners for Sustainable Nevada. And we'll talk a little bit more about that name and how we came up with that and potentially changing that as we move forward. My name is Darren Winkelmann. I'm with Nevada Division of Environmental Protection, Bureau of Sustainable Materials Management. We are excited you decided to join us today. We are even more excited to start this journey with you, and we look forward to creating a coordinated effort regarding sustainability in Nevada. So before we get started to the main presentation, we wanted to go over a few kind of housekeeping items. This meeting is being recorded, and we will share that recording after the meeting is over with all the participants that signed up. The lines are muted, and we will unmute those lines as needed. If you have questions during the meeting, please use the chat box, and we'll try to answer those questions as quickly as we can. If you're familiar with life size or not, the chat box, I think, is the two little box symbols to the right of your screen there. If we are unable to answer the questions before the end of the meeting, we'll try to compile the answers and send them all to you as well. We hope to have a little bit of time at the end of the meeting for more kind of live questions and answers if needed. We want this group to be a working group, so there are some surveys within the presentation we'd like you to participate in, and also we want this group to kind of be results oriented, just not a group that meets. And so we'll be talking about working groups later on in the presentation and what we envision kind of moving forward with the stakeholder group. So just a quick look here at our agenda for today. We have an overview of, I think, of some interesting waste and recycling data for the state, kind of an overview of the initiative. We'll look at the survey results from the questions all of you answered, the next steps, and then moving forward with, again, question and answers towards the end. So again, I am Darren Winkelmann. We have Kayla Alm and Bree Case, who are Sustainable Material Management Coordinators for the state. And to be honest, we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Kayla and Bree. They have created a great presentation and super passionate about sustainability and what it can offer for Nevada. Also, I'd like to recognize Mr. Jeffrey Kinder, our Deputy Administrator for NDEP. He is on the call this afternoon and also very supportive of this effort. So this effort is a long time coming. We started about 2 years ago, but with COVID, we had to postpone. But like they say, better late than never, I guess. We would have liked to do this in person, but again, with still some of the COVID restrictions in place, we felt it probably wasn't the best approach, but we did not want to postpone this endeavor any longer. So a little bit of background on our Bureau. Our current mission for the division is hazardous solid waste permitting and compliance. We do education outreach and recycling and sustainability. So in the past, we focused on end-of-life waste management. But after numerous internal discussions and listening to feedback from our external partners, about 3 years ago, NDEP made a bold, and when I use the word bold, I think it's appropriate in this instance, made a bold move and decided to do a paradigm shift from waste management mission to a sustainable materials management mission. However, we did not want this to be a name change only. We wanted to create a system of concrete, tangible, sustainable goals. So we thought to ourselves, how do we get there? This type of endeavor is really new to NDEP. We've never done something like this before, and we really didn't know what the next step needed to be. But after some initial brainstorming and some strategic planning, and after listening to feedback from many of you, the idea of a stakeholder group emerged. So here we are, and again, excited to start this journey with you. So enough about us and how we got here. The important part is you as a stakeholder. And we were hoping for a diverse group, and I believe we've got it. We have representation from government, private, and nonprofit organizations, and both urban and rural areas of the state. And I really believe that this diversity will create the success for this venture. And later on, we'll have in the presentation, you'll see a video with some of the stakeholders and the representation from the partners. And I think the video is inspirational and really kind of showcases what we're trying to do with this group. So what's really driving this initiative? You know, it's like the puzzle pieces on the slide. You dump them out of a box and they're all jumbled up and we don't know what it looks like, but as you start to put pieces together to that puzzle, you really start to see the picture emerge. And so we really needed a mechanism to create a coordinated effort in that particular statewide effort. And as again, we mentioned before, feedback from you and we needed more of that statewide coordination. And so we also wanted a way to celebrate regional and local efforts. A lot of good work is going on in sustainability in the state, and we needed to find a better way to recognize that statewide and possibly replicate those successes elsewhere within the state. We also wanted to create a strong presence in policymaking. Many of the legislative efforts have made their way to the state capitol, but with little to no success. And NDEP itself also has challenges in developing legislation. And so we have a limited number of bill draft requests that can move forward. And as a state agency, sometimes that's very difficult. So we just needed to find a better way to, again, create that coordinated effort when it comes to policy change within the state. And we believe there is room to do a lot of policy improvement within Nevada. So a lot of times we find ourselves in the legislative effort playing defense and not offense regarding legislation. We wanted to change that. So can we do it? I believe we can do it if we do it together and emerge as a strong leader in sustainability. It will take all of you, and the mission, if you choose to accept it, will be a stronger mission in sustainable Nevada. Really what we're trying to do is create that cohesive, coordinated effort. I can't stress that enough. So again, I'm sure you're tired of me talking, so I'll turn it over to Kayla for the next presentation. I'm going to scoot out here so she can scoot in. So we'll get going on the next slide.
All right, thank you, Darren, for that very warm welcome, and thank you to all of you joining us this afternoon, taking your time out of your day. I really appreciate you guys as stakeholders participating in the survey, certainly participating today, and our efforts moving forward. So I'm going to go into a little bit of background about the data that we collect here at NDEP, looking at our waste disposal and recycling programs. So if we look here at the waste disposal, back in 2010, the average Nevada resident disposed about 5.7 pounds of waste per person per day. Now jumping to the most recent data, back in 2020, this slightly increased to even 6 pounds of waste disposed per person per day in Nevada, equaling out to about 3.4 million tons of waste disposed of in Nevada landfills just this past year. Now, if we take the Nevada data and compare it to the national average, EPA stated in 2018 that 4.9 pounds of waste was disposed per person nationally. So Nevada does have an increase waste disposal compared to the national average. So it's something to consider definitely moving forward. Now, if we're looking here at the recycling rate, which a lot of you participants called out as we need a much higher Nevada recycling rate. Here's a little bit of background information of where that came from and what that calculation includes. So the Nevada legislature set a 25% recycling rate goal back in 1991. The materials included in that rate are most of these single stream recycling options, your plastics, metals, paper, some special waste such as household hazardous waste or used oils also included. And this the materials are from EPA designated materials from residential sources only. So this does not include our construction waste, our demolition, industry waste. That's not included in this recycling rate. So if you look at the past 10 years of this recycling rate, Nevada did, as a state, meet the recycling rate goal in 2011 to 2013, mostly due to low disposal rates and an increased recycling tonnages. Now, I want to direct your attention to the blue line at the end of the graph in 2020, where we as NDEP decided to change how we are collecting this recycling rate data. So we can, look at this, the recycling rate increase as, yes, this is exciting, but we also did a lot of outreach to try and collect more data. So we'll see how this data continues to look at us, for the next 10, 20, 50 years of recycling rate data using this new program. And that new change of the program, we changed with, it's called Retrack Connect. Now, Retrack Connect is a web-based material management software that we here customize to collect data that's of interest to our waste and recycling programs. So we are now able to directly talk with businesses and municipalities who are recycling this, the material. In turn, that allows us more transparency for this data where we can reduce double counting. We can make sure that all materials are from these residential sources and really start to look at the material that's moving throughout the state, giving us a better idea of what this recycling rate is trying to tell us. Now, moving forward with the stakeholder group, we're anticipating on using Retrack Connect to collect data for this group moving forward and really serve as a data clearinghouse to make sure that all data information coming out of the stakeholder group is very transparent, it's uniform, so that there's no question about the data that this group is collecting. So taking a closer look at the recycling rate limitations, the recycling rate is really heavily dependent on waste generation. So that can kind of skew some of the data that's coming out of this rate calculation. Additionally, recycling is only one part of sustainability, yet most of our data collection revolves around recycling. I know a lot of the survey responses that you guys submitted called out that Nevada should strive for a higher recycling rate. But what does that really mean? So I want to bring up an example. So here we're looking at some data from 2012 compared to our most current 2020 data. So if we look at 2012, as a state as a whole, Nevada recycled just over 1 million tons of material. If we compare that to 2020, we recycled just under 1 million tons of material, about 21,000 fewer tons, so it's very comparable, about a 2% difference. Now, if we look at the daily waste disposal per the average Nevada resident, in 2012, it's about 5 pounds per person per day, whereas 2020, that increased to 6 pounds per person per day. Now, in turn, that changes about a 6% decrease of the recycling rate from almost 29% in 2012 to just over 22% just this past year. So even though we recycled the same amount, mostly the same amount of material in these 2 years, there's a great difference in the Nevada recycling rate. So are we trying to strive for an increase in this recycling material tonnage? Are we striving for waste disposal reductions? Are we looking at both, or do we need to look at an entirely different metric? So I think these are some of the questions that we want these working groups and the stakeholder group to look at moving forward, is how can we accurately track and measure what is going on with Nevada sustainability? All right, so that's just a background on the waste and recycling data that we track here at NDEP. So now I really want to get into the meat of the stakeholder group. We received a lot of information and comments about what is the stakeholder group going to look like. So let's take a deeper dive into that. So as Darren said, this has been a multi-year process to get the stakeholder group really to come together. And we've been talking with other successful stakeholder groups in different areas of the nation. So I really want to call out kind of these 2 different models that you guys see here. So on the bottom, there's the Northeast Recycling Council. Now this stakeholder group is composed of 11 states in the northeastern part of our nation, mostly nonprofit driven, and they are focused on recycling. They have done some absolutely amazing projects over state boundaries that has been very helpful and inspiring for us to look at. Additionally, we are very thankful for the Connecticut Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management, where they have a stakeholder group for one state, for Connecticut, that is mostly municipality driven in order to reduce their waste generation. So in this stakeholder group here for Nevada, we're trying to kind of bridge these 2 models, where we're looking at this one state right now for Nevada, but we want to have all of the different sectors. We have nonprofits, our private businesses, our municipalities, industry. We want to bring everyone together into this one united stakeholder group. This is very new to us, and we are willing to change whatever needs to work for this group moving forward based on your feedback as stakeholders in your group. So anything you guys think that would be helpful for us, you guys are the ones making the changes for this group, and we'll make it happen for you. So it's a little bit more deeper detail about the structure of the group that we're putting together here. So here we're going to use the analogy of a tree for our more right-handed participants today. So here we see a grove of trees. We want to essentially add a new tree to this grove of other stakeholder groups throughout the nation. So as the foundation of the roots of our system, us here at NDEP, we're just the foundation for this group. We are not the focus of this group. We're here just to provide the support that you guys need as stakeholders. So we're going to be providing support for our different working groups, our different working group leadership, all of our virtual meeting spaces such as today, providing the notes, meeting recordings, it's that central unified area for you guys to come and communicate. We also want to ensure that all stakeholders have an equal voice in these different working group meetings. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to provide Retract Connect as the data clearinghouse for this stakeholder group moving forward. So now you guys as stakeholders, you guys are our trunk, the main support for this group, the ones holding together everything here. So we're asking you as a stakeholders to determine where you and your organization best fit based on your personal interest and your ability to make change. A lot of you in your survey responses called out that you would like to see change. You want to see people walking the walk instead of just talking behind the scenes and meeting for meeting's sake. So this is up to you guys to determine the impacts that you are going to make within the stakeholder group. Now, there are a million ways that sustainability can take a turn. So in order to start narrowing down the conversations, we're going to kind of work into these different working groups. They're going to talk about certain topics. Now, these topics we'll discuss later on in the presentation that, again, came from your survey to start narrowing down and so we can create this path forward. These working groups, again, we took these ideas from the surveys that you guys submitted, and you're going to identify programs that can be viable options to consider that we're put together into one document that we're calling the menu of options. So that menu of options is really going to be a menu per se. So if you go to a restaurant and you see you have all the different food options, you may like some but not others. That doesn't mean that any menu is not available for your meal. So here's a way where once we start working out these working groups, you guys are going to work together and essentially come up with all of the different programs that are able to help facilitate your sustainability topic. So this is not an endorsement of these specific policies. This is not us here to say, yes, you should, take this route, or, ABC company, go ahead and take this other route. This is just a comprehensive list to, again, say all of the different options that can be available to enhance sustainability throughout Nevada. So once we have this central document together, the menu of options, we can then start seeing what options are available and who would like to start these different projects, right? So we're going to have a bunch of different actionable outcomes that can come out from these projects, and this is really the meat and potatoes of this group. This is where you guys as individuals and stakeholders can start walking the walk and getting these programs to come together. So now we're going to open up to a little bit of an open question and answer time from our chat box. Do we have any comments that came out so far? Awesome. So I just want to reiterate that the quick overview I went of this stakeholder group. If you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. If something is not working at any point, we can change the structure of this group. Okay. So we're now going to move on to a mission statement exercise. So mission statements can be really critical to a group to bring together a central statement so that everyone knows why we are here and what we are doing as a group. So most mission statement exercises can take hours, if not days, to complete. And through your survey responses, we were able to take about main themes and try and come up with an exercise here to create a mission statement today. So that way we can have it in a matter of under an hour for you guys instead of a multi-day, very long, intensive process. So the way we're going to run this exercise is we have a survey here for you that you can either click on in the comment section box, you can take a photo with the QR code, or input it directly into one of your browsers. So we're going to have the mission statement saying our mission is to do what, for who, by how. And each of those three bolded blue words, we have different options for you to think of what's going to fit best of why are we here, what are we doing, and who are we doing it for. Okay, also on the survey, this is where Darren mentioned earlier, we have a video that brings together a lot of our stakeholders throughout the entire state that we've been working with in the past, and really want to emphasize that this is a stakeholder group that we have been very excited for, and what we can accomplish when we all come together. So during this time, we're going to take 20 minutes so you guys can watch the video, complete the survey, take a short break, and then we will reconvene to go into your survey result discussions. And again, if you guys have any questions, please input them to the comment box. We will have staff during this break responding to comments. All right, thank you. this is Kayla Alm. I see that you raised your hand. Do you have a question we can answer? Dean, we've unmuted you on our end, but I believe you're still muted on yours. If you would like, you can also input your question into the chat box.
this is Darren again. I really appreciate everybody taking a look at the video. I hope you were able to view it. If you could just give us a thumbs up, even a thumbs down, we'll take that constructive criticism and things we can do better. Please do that in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you to see what you think. And we did, as an agency, again, this is new to us and to do something like that. And I do also want to thank Skylar Jones, who is our education outreach coordinator. She was the leader behind this the video, and so we are super appreciative of her doing that. But yeah, let us know what you think. Thank you. Everybody, looks like we're getting a lot of the surveys answered. We really appreciate that. If any of you have ever been involved in mission building, like Kayla said early on, it can be a tasking event. We're trying to do this in a short amount of time, and we really appreciate that. So we have about 5 minutes left. So we'll let everybody kind of finish up, and then we have a lot of people behind the scenes working on your responses, and we'll bring those forward here a little bit later in the presentation. So yeah, we'll get started here in a couple more minutes. Welcome back. Thank you for doing the survey. We got some great responses, so we really appreciate that. We're going to move on, and you'll see later on that what we tried to accomplish here with that missions building exercise. I just want to again thank all of our partners who helped with the video. We couldn't have done it without you, so thank you very, very much for that. And we hope to do quite a bit more of that in different formats and looking at different areas as we move forward. I'd like to now introduce Bree Case. Bree is our Sustainable Materials Management Coordinator. She is housed in our Las Vegas office, but very much a big part of our team. And so Bree is going to go through the survey and give you some of the results from those surveys. So Bree, I will now turn it over to you.
Thanks, Darren. Hi, everyone. I'm Bree, as Darren pointed out. And I'll be discussing the details of the surveys we sent out a few weeks ago. As Kayla mentioned in the previous section, the idea of this initiative is to build working groups around focus areas that you all have identified as being important. And in order to identify those focus areas, we designed and sent out surveys. So in this next session, we're going to get into these survey results. And we actually sent out 2 different surveys, one to municipalities and one to NGOs and the industry sector. Given that these 2 groups offer different perspectives and have distinctive relationships with their communities, we thought it would be appropriate to create 2 different surveys. And we received a wide range of responses with great and well thought out ideas. And we'll be sharing these results with you over the next few slides. And as we discuss the results, I want you to see how other stakeholders responded and see if there's any other insights that are new to you or you've never thought of before, because that's just not your area of expertise. So for the municipality survey, we focused on what services municipalities offered their residents and what services residents requested. The NGO and industry survey, on the other hand, focused more on what a sustainable Nevada looks like and how their organizations can help reach that vision. And although we used 2 different surveys, there were some similar questions and overlap between the 2. For example, both surveys polled stakeholders on pressing challenges and opportunities in Nevada. That particular question helped us identify common trends among all stakeholders. And these trends are where we can find common ground and build working groups around. And we're going to start off with the municipality survey results first. So we asked municipalities what challenges they experienced when providing services to their communities. Contamination and single-stream recycling was mentioned by a lot of municipalities as a problem. As you may know, single-stream recycling makes recycling easier for the resident, but it also can lead to higher contamination rates because the wrong items can get commingled together. Also, a lack of recycling access for multifamily buildings is another area of concern. And to speak on this topic briefly, multifamily buildings, such as apartments, they often lack recycling because the service requests and payments usually have to go through building owners and not the tenants. So either all tenants have recycling and they all have to pay for it, or no one does. It's also expensive, which means many landlords don't want to deal with it. Another problem that was identified was that sustainability programs may not be an attractive option to those who set the budget, and that means buy-in can be a challenge. And finally, I'd like to point out that final box on this slide in the bottom right, where it says poor community understanding of recycling in the waste stream. Throughout both surveys for municipalities and for the NGOs and industry, stakeholders identified public education and public awareness as areas needing substantial attention. Next, we asked municipalities what waste materials were the most expensive to manage and that they might be interested in managing with an extended producer responsibility program, or EPR program. For anyone unfamiliar with EPR programs, In a nutshell, it is a policy approach where producers are giving significant responsibility, financial and/or physical responsibility for the treatment and disposal of post-consumer products. And according to the survey, household hazardous waste, tires, and mattresses were the top 3 waste materials that were identified as being difficult to manage and that their end-of-life management could benefit from an EPR approach. We also polled municipalities about what their residents care about when the municipality is considering a new program or a new service to reduce waste. And I don't think this will come as much surprise to anyone, but the top concerns of residents are convenience, affordability, and reliability. Whereas residents are often less concerned with extending the lifespan of a landfill or reducing the cost of a solid waste facility. And it's not to say these 2 things aren't important, but it's just not top of mind for residents. Finally, the last focus area of the municipality survey that we'll cover is their successful sustainability programs. And as you can see from this list, there are a wide range of programs that have been successful. Some municipalities, for example, mentioned that they have had successful household hazardous waste and e-waste programs. Some have seen success with yard waste and seasonal green waste collection, and even some have water bottle refill stations. So if there's a program up here that you want to see implemented across the state or specifically in your area, know that there are members in this group that have seen success with such programs, and you'll be able to pick their brain as this initiative moves forward. Next, we're going to shift gears, and we're going to look at some of the responses from our NGO and industry members. One question we asked them was, what changes need to happen in the state in order to achieve a more sustainable Nevada? Many of their responses mentioned the need for better long-term management of resources and building circular economies. Many also identified the need to change policy, raise public awareness, inspire our community pride, and educate the public. And many of you identified that achieving a sustainable Nevada requires a multifaceted approach. So for example, while some members specifically mentioned the need to have higher recycling rates, many were aware of the fact that we also need to do other things like reducing waste, repurposing items, and providing access to community composting. Also, like the municipalities, many of you identified the need to provide better access to recycling for rural areas and multifamily buildings. And also, like the municipality survey, NGOs and industry were polled on their successful sustainability programs. Again, as you can see from this list, there's a wide range of programs, and this list is not exhaustive. We received 90+ survey responses and can only fit a few on these slides. But we have stakeholders who convert used cooking oil into biodiesel, those who provide e-waste recycling. We have some who are educators and teach students about sustainability. And we even have organizations who manage volunteer efforts to clean up waste in our communities. So again, I want to emphasize that the stakeholder group is bringing together organizations and individuals who have a variety of great experience that we can tap into. As I mentioned at the beginning of this section, one of the main goals of these surveys was to find common ground between all the stakeholders. Common themes emerged from the surveys, and these themes included the need to focus on education and outreach, which seemed to be the most mentioned area by far for improvement. Also, there was a common theme that indicated the need to improve recycling, reduce waste, increase composting efforts, and identify funding options. And other sustainability topics such as resource and water conservation and renewable energy were also identified as needing to be addressed in this initiative. So after we identified those common themes from your survey responses, we turn them into focus areas for the working groups. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we have 7 working groups. We have a recycling working group, another for education, program funding, organics, policy change, source reduction, and a general sustainability group that can cover topics like climate change, water resource conservation, and renewable energy. Also, you'll have the opportunity to comment on whether or not there's a sustainability topic that you feel is important, but does not fall under one of these 7 categories. And you'll be able to do that in a survey we'll send out after the meeting. Finally, I want to briefly touch on the roles within each working group. Each group will have a chair and a co-chair that will lead and manage the group members. The main responsibilities of the chair and co-chair will be to plan and organize working group meetings, lead discussion, and ensure that the groups are working towards producing their section of the menu of options. And the members, what they'll be doing is participating in group discussions, offering their expertise, and accomplishing any tasks that are related to the working group's goals. So again, after this meeting, we'll be sending out an email with a very short survey. This is an important survey to fill out. You'll be able to sign up for whatever working groups you're interested in, and you can participate in more than one group. And in that same survey, you'll be able to sign up for what role you want to pursue in that group, whether that is the chair or co-chair or a member. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Kayla and Darren, and they're going to discuss what sorts of subtopics each working group could potentially explore. And hopefully that will give you a better idea of how the working groups will operate and contribute to a menu of options.
Brief for going through the survey discussions, and thank you everyone who submitted surveys. We appreciate the time and effort that you spent submitting those surveys, because again, that's what's going to create the success and forward movement of the stakeholder group. So as Bree mentioned, we're going to go into a little bit more detail about each working group topic. And these are by no means comprehensive. This is just going to get your brains to start thinking about what can be discussed in each group, if you think a certain topic fits into a group or if it belongs elsewhere. And all of these ideas that we have mentioned here came again from your survey responses. I know we have a lot of people calling out in the comments section, I want to talk about ABC program and this initiative, and we want to reduce waste. So now we're going to see where these different topics are going to fit in. And again, if there is a program that does not fit into one of these 7 working groups, we will have the ability to have one-on-one conversations with you guys, see if there's something that does fit into these topics, or if we need to somehow rearrange these different topics. Again, we just started to create these different groups to best serve the working group what we saw from the survey. And as this is your stakeholder group, we will again provide that foundation to set you guys up for success. So without further ado, we're going to talk about our education and outreach working group. So this was one of the heavy topics that was identified in the survey is we need more public education. We need education to go out to our school age students, to our businesses, different industry, even all the way to going out to our different legislators and people who we work with as co-workers. So it's going to be a full educational campaign. Even when our bureau goes out and completes inspections, we are providing education to the different facilities throughout the state. So this is a very all-encompassive working group of education of all kinds, not just our school students, not just our public areas, but really what do we want to accomplish with our education outreach related to sustainability. The next topic we're going to go into is the organics management. So this is looking at our composting facilities. I know this past legislative session, we saw a composting bill come through. So this is going to be a great area where we can start having those discussions about what's going to be successful for Nevada. Additionally, we can start looking at organics reduction and food donation. We have, one of our stakeholders who participated in our video manages the pig livestock area down in Las Vegas. So this is a very It's going to be a very exciting group, I think, to be working with to see how we can start looking at the different management of our yard waste and food programs throughout the state. Being one of the drier, if not driest state in our nation, I think we really need to have a good look about how are we managing the different organics that are coming out of our very dry soil and how can we help replenish them. So up next, again, general recycling is one of the working group topics we're going to be working with. Single stream recycling is not available to residents around the state. That is something that has been requested, or what's going to be the best recycling management system for residents around the state. There's, as Bree mentioned earlier, multifamily recycling opportunities are most oftentimes limited throughout the state that a large area of our residents live in, and we would like all residents of Nevada to have access to recycling if that's what they choose to do. We also need to help our waste facilities and our different waste recyclers of how can we improve the quantity and quality of recyclables and material that are collected. Contamination is a huge, huge problem that probably almost everywhere struggles with. So again, that's going to tie back to our education and outreach group of how can we start improving recycling opportunities throughout our state. And just as we mentioned earlier, recycling is a part of sustainability and does have a very big role to fill. So we anticipate that this working group is going to be very instrumental at looking at improving recycling opportunities throughout the state. So up next, as we had some people mention earlier in our comments, source reduction. Just as we said, recycling is one part of sustainability. Yes, it's one part. We need to start from the top down. So how can we start looking at these circular economy ideas, our zero waste initiatives, reducing and donating programs? We have a lot of nonprofit thrift stores who are participating in this call today who are very much so a part of that source reduction part of sustainability. And we want to, again, lift them up as well. There are very, numerous efforts throughout the nation that are happening that we may not be, working with. So this would be a great area where we can now talk about those source reduction topics. So another topic that, again, we've had a lot of comments about is funding. We have these wonderful, great ideas to improve sustainability throughout the state, but how do we fund these programs? So that's something that we would love to help facilitate. How can we start these conversations and really looking at what funding opportunities are available for these working groups? So we anticipate, again, and these groups are not comprehensive, these are just ideas that came out of your surveys. So there's different grant research opportunities, there's federal grants, state grants, more local grants, and then there's also nonprofits who, believe it or not, have these funding potential opportunities. There's also a numerous amount of fee-based programs that other states utilize to offset costs for their municipality programs and are additional ways to fund these sustainability programs. So I think this is going to be a very critical working group to move forward with, and we look forward to seeing how this group is going to help really fund all of the sustainability programs. So very much so, along with funding is our policy change. As we've mentioned, one of the reasons that we want to get this group to come together is there's been numerous legislative proposals that really not resulted in much action. So this is a great group where we can get together and talk about different policy changes that would like to be brought up to the legislature and come forward together to start creating that action. These are different, as Bree mentioned, there's some different EPR programs that other states utilize that we can learn a lot from. Historically, we've had several Bottle Bill legislation come through and be unsuccessful for various different reasons. So this is going to be a group that can talk about those potential legislative options. And again, as we're not endorsing any certain legislation, but we want this to facilitate this area where groups like yourself can come together, talk about what options are out there for different policy changes and how can we support you guys in getting the policy changes that you are seeking. All right, so the last working group that we are anticipating here, and I'm going to have Darren come in and join me as well for this group, is our sustainability group. So Darren, check to come in.
Thank you, Kayla. So this was a difficult slide for us, or a difficult topic to talk about a little bit, because we had a lot of internal discussions, and obviously this came out of the survey, so it's important to you, it's important to us, but we're wondering where NDEP and then ultimately the stakeholder group fits with these particular topics. So when you start to look at, climate change, obviously we know is a big topic, transportation, all the ones you see on here. Is it our role as this group to move some of those forward? We know that there are some efforts going on currently through the governor's office, through Department of Transportation, that are covering many of these topics. And so this would be a group that we need to look at. How do we move this forward? Do we become part of those other groups? Do we ultimately maybe assume some of the duties of those groups? So this is kind of where we're struggling with, that we need your help. Again, because based on some of the information we received from the surveys, it's important to you, it's important to us, but we're really struggling to kind of figure out how we fit and how this group moving forward fits in some of these topics. So this may be one of those working groups that we kind of loosely put together and see where it kind of goes. And but we do need, again, I think some of your feedback to figure out kind of the best approach for this, because again, we're not really quite sure how all this fits in what we're trying to do in terms of, kind of the sustainable materials portion of what we're up to. So more to come on this as we move forward. And if you're interested in this more passionately about some of the other ones, and you want to kind of be the chair or co-chair of this, we're on board with that, and we will do everything to kind of figure out where this particular group ends up going.
All right. So at this point, we're going to check in with our team who's been wordsmithing our mission statement behind the scenes. But first, I want to hear from you guys in our comments. Was there anything that you had a question of, something that does not fit into one of the stakeholder groups? For example, I know we have a lot of battery recyclers who are very interested in joining us on this initiative, and I see, your role is participating in a couple different working groups, and so again, we want to leave that up to you guys of where do you think you're going to best fit in. So do you guys have any questions so far on the different working group topics? Anything, Skylar? Okay. All right. Well, at this point, we're still going to finalize up some of the mission statement selections, but I would like to.
Do you want to go over a question?
Oh, yes, if you have a question, by all means.
Can you see them?
I cannot know.
Would the sustainability group be the place to focus on growth and development,
Okay.
or would we need a separate group focused on creating scenarios to address sustainable population growth?
Okay. So we had a question relating to sustainable population growth, and is the sustainability group going to be the best group for that? Initially, right off the top of my head, I would say yes, that is going to be a good group at that point to see if that topic does fit into that group, or when we get the chair and co-chairs together and we start talking with this group, if we eventually want to merge that into its own separate group moving forward. Just because we have these 7 working groups right now does not mean that in 6 months or a year, we're going to have the same 7 working groups. So if it fits into that sustainability group, I would say absolutely yes. Let's get the chair and co-chairs to make sure that we work in that topic into that group. And if it doesn't have a place there, then we will figure out another best fit for that topic. Do we have any others, Skylar? Tina raised her hand. Okay. Oh, yes.
Do you want to answer?
If there's another one.
Where will growing food fit into these topics?
Growing food. I would anticipate if we can fit that into our organics management working group, because that doesn't necessarily have to mean for the end of life for organics. I know we talked a lot about the composting or food donation or animal donation programs, but organics management can go all the way from growing, the very beginning of the life cycle, to the end, almost with that organic circular economy topic. So I would think that would fit into there as well.
What should people do if the topic that they're interested in fits into more than one category?
So you had a question of if their program is going to fit into multiple stake or working groups, where should they fit in? And I would say at that point, when we send out the survey, if you have a question on where you think your group should best fit, note it in there, and then we can again have that kind of one-on-one conversation with you. And then when we finalize the chair and co-chairs, we can also have that conversation with them of what do they think is going to best fit in there. All right? Oh yes, by all means.
Thank you, Kayla. I'm just going to jump in on that question real quick as well. As anybody knows me at this point, I'm a big team kind of person, and so we want to make sure that these working groups all work together, and we'll be talking with each other. So one, we're going to try to figure where that best fit is, and once we figure that out, if it kind of crosses different working groups, we're going to make sure those chairs and co-chairs are working together to make sure we're not missing something and that everything is kind of tied together. So.
Yes, thank you. All right, so I see that Tina, you raised your hand. We're going to unmute you, but do you have a question or comment for us? I believe, Tina, you're unmuted.
My question was literally just answered. I was wondering how all of these working groups were going to Should be good.
Okay, perfect. As long as your question was answered.
Did we get it?
All right, I think so. Yeah.
Right. She broke up. Right?
Yeah, but you see it's all answered.
Okay.
So I think we're good. All right, so we have a couple mission statements that, again, we had staff behind the scenes wordsmith from your survey responses earlier. So again, just like you guys did earlier, if you can open up the survey through the link here, Skylar is going to put it in through the chat function, or you can use your phone with the QR code. We're going to give you guys about 10 minutes to view the various mission statement options, then rank them in order of your least favorite or your most favorite to least favorite. So have the mission statement that you think best suits this group at the top of the survey for us, okay? If we notice that we get all of the responses back, we may come back a couple minutes early. But for the meantime, we don't want to extend more than 10 minutes for this exercise. And again, if you guys have any questions for us, please put them in the chat box. So go forward, complete the survey. And Dean, I see that your hand is raised. We will go ahead and unmute you if you have a question or comment for us.
That was a errant hand raising, so I apologize for that.
No problem. It's great to hear you and see your face. Thanks. All right, we're going to move on now. So thank you everyone who submitted the final mission statement rating survey. We do have a mission statement that you guys voted that you liked the best. So we're going to have Darren talk a little more about the mission statement exercise and how this mission can help us move forward as a stakeholder group, and then present the final mission to you guys.
Thanks, Kayla, and thank everyone. Like I said earlier on, I don't know how many of you have been involved with mission building, but we have facilitated numerous mission building exercises, and sometimes it's a 2-day process. And you guys did this in a very, very short time, which tells me a lot, though, to be honest with you. It tells me that you guys are, one, passionate about this, and two, we have some common ground. We saw a lot of different responses in the initial survey. But as we narrow down this mission statement, we found how common each of it, what commonalities we have in sustainability. So I'm super excited about it. Maybe so excited that I may pick on some of you guys later to help us with some of our mission building that we do outside of this agency. But I really appreciate your willingness to try it. It's hard. I get that. It's hard to answer some of those longer questions and but most of the responses were super thoughtful, and it means a lot, and I think it will be certainly a foundation for you and us as a group as we move forward. So without further ado, I will read what you guys kind of came up with, and we'll preface this a little bit by saying that it is always changeable. Everything we're doing here is changeable as we move forward. We think the mission statement may be too long. As we get deeper into the groups and groups get a little more traction, maybe we want to change some things. Also maybe looking forward to kind of vision setting as well to help hold up this mission statement. So there's always ways to change and tweak as we move forward. So I will read, excuse me, look away a little bit here and read this, but so what we came up with was our mission is to change the way Nevada thinks about sustainability for our future generations by identifying to advance and expand sustainability efforts statewide. I think that I don't know, when I'm looking at some of the people in the room here, I think it covers really what we're doing. We could certainly probably change a little bit of wording there, wordsmith some things, but I think as a starting point, it's super, super cool and wonderful. So I think that's, if you guys will send that out, and then as we get the co-chairs, and our chairs and co-chairs working in the future, we'll continue to evaluate. That will be the foundation we start with and moving forward. And again, if we think it needs to be changed a little bit or moved around and tweaked and wordsmith, we can certainly do that. But I think that's great. And again, big proponent of mission statement vision building, and you guys did it, and you did it in a really short amount of time, which is really great. Back to you, Kayla.
All right, so now we're going to start wrapping up our meeting today. We're going to go over through a few next steps of what to expect really after this meeting, how to get a hold of us, and how to express your interest on the roles and that you want to play in each working group. So at the conclusion of this meeting, we're going to be sending out again another survey where you guys can note the role and which working groups you would like to participate in, as well as giving you an opportunity to ask questions about where you think you will best fit and what topics can fit within the different working groups. So we're going to ask that survey be due back to us by August 25th. That way we can start identifying who's going to be the chair and co-chairs of each working group. We can begin our meetings with them so that they can start again working with you guys to create these working group meetings to start contributing to that menu of options. We anticipate having the menu of options published by 6 months. So we're looking at March here. Again, this stakeholder group is going to be boots on the ground, walking the walk, completing these different action items. So this is our first deadline. We're looking at the end of March to having publish our menu of options that we can start working on implementing different projects. Also, I want to bring to note, we have 2 different email addresses that we would like you guys to add as approved email addresses. The first, the top email address is a constant contact email address that you'd be used for our blast emails. We were getting a lot of feedback from stakeholders that this is going to spam folders, which has been noted with constant contact. So if you guys go ahead and approve this email address, the emails that we send out will no longer go to your spam folders. Additionally, since we have a lot of staff here at NDEP who are dedicated to helping our stakeholders and support this initiative, we created a single email address that you guys can reach out to, and that way we can direct it to the appropriate staff member to hopefully make it easier for you guys to get a hold of us. We know that there's a lot of us working here and we all have different roles. Some of us switch roles every now and then. So here's a single spot where you guys can reach out to knowing that you are going to get a response. So at that point, that concludes the meat of our presentation. So, oh yeah, go ahead, Darren.
Just real quick, thanks, Kayla. I want to make sure that everybody understands. So there's two things we need to really think about too. We created the Partnership for Sustainable Nevada as a kind of a placeholder for us so we can keep track of the information coming in and keep track of the logistics and planning of this effort. We don't want to in any way say that that's the name of this group. If we need to change that, or if you guys have some better ideas, we are all open for that. Same with this email address. We wanted to make sure that we started off with an address that we could begin to gather some of this information. But again, this is an effort that we believe in. It's an effort we know that now that you believe in, and now so that we all believe in. But so if we need to change those things, we have no ownership. We're here to help drive this initiative, be supportive of this initiative, and any suggestions you have or name changes or better ways of doing that, please bring that forward to us. So yeah, now we can open up for questions. I think if you could raise your hand, we're going to have one of our colleagues here, Jess, helping us kind of go in order if we can in terms of who raises their hand. So bear with us. If we miss you, just kind of keep raising your hand or let us know. We'll try to catch everybody before we get off. And again, if we don't, we'll certainly make sure we answer those questions and get that out to everybody. So it's now open up, and we'll unmute you as needed. So I think Aster has raised her hand. We'll go there first.
Aster Gurma from Nevada Green Institute. The working group divided is mostly focused on material management, recycling, all that under that umbrella. However, everything we are talking about is sustainability. So sustainability is not a different thing, but it is inside all that mentioned group. However, because the focus is material management under that division, we focused. We are not mentioned, as they said in sustainability, climate change, green renewable energy, development, growth, all this planning, all this, things we didn't mention that. However, if it is really, we want that group, we can put under sustainable building, sustainable infrastructure, or sustainable something development. Sustainable development, maybe that is a big one. I can help that because that is my area of sustainability and sustainable development. So what my fear is, sustainability is not different things that what the other 6 group is developed. That is sustainability as well. So let us make it well-rounded and interconnected, and the big umbrella is sustainability, and then the other group is under sustainability, and there are best practices. So maybe we can work on around that. Instead of mentioning sustainability.
Yeah, thank you for that. I agree with you 100%. And so, and I think that's what we looked at earlier on that 7th working group is how does that all fit into the umbrella of sustainability? And I think that's what's so great about, I think, that particular working group and in this group as a whole is how do we move this forward? Yes, you're right. We focus mostly on materials management because that's where our expertise lies and that's who we have working for us. But I agree that it is a much bigger picture, and we have to, all of that folds into what sustainability folds into what we're doing. And so And you would be helpful probably on that working group to help us figure out how we do that, and how we have all those other groups, working on transportation and climate change and those sorts of things within the state. How do we fit into all of that as kind of the material management side of things? So I'm open to that discussion and willing to kind of figure out how we do move that forward.
Thank you.
Do you want to address Noah's comment?
So I think we had a couple questions in the chat box. Is that true, Skylar? And so make sure we want to cover those. I think we had one or two that were a little bit longer that we thought this would be a good time to do that. So if you've got one, let me.
Yeah, so talking about if we're starting the idea solutions to implementation, or if we have any specific initiatives already in development.
So I think we envisioned originally that this would be some mostly ground up initiatives. We also understand that there are a lot of programs and projects going on at local levels, and we want to be able to support those projects as a group, whether that is in just support or funding. A lot of times we apply for different federal grants or state grants, and they have to have a, kind of the government oversight of that, for lack of a better way. And so we want to try to use that group to do that. But what we envisioned originally was kind of working from the ground up, but also looking at how do we enhance some of the other programs, or how do we utilize some of those other programs elsewhere. Like we said, there's a lot of great programs going on throughout the state, some down south, some up north. So how do we do the ones down south? How can we bring those up north? And I think that comes back to the working groups and how we begin to look at the different programs throughout the state and implementing them elsewhere. Does that answer? I hope that answered the question.
I believe so. Okay. The hard stuff. Okay, so let's go into Lori's question. Laura, I'm sorry, Laura. That one here. So Laura's asking if there's going to be communication between the stakeholder group members, if they may be able to offer solutions to problems we've already identified in a particular location. So absolutely. When we get the chair and co-chairs together, they can start identifying who's going to be on their team. And then if, in their first meeting, they want to have just a general meet and greet, see who has different solutions to these problems statewide. I think that's going to be the best spot to now bring together everyone to have a united discussion about this certain topic that they are discussing. Does that answer your question, Laura? I hope you're still on the line here. Okay, so as we're going through here.
Any other, Skylar, that we're missing, do you think?
Oh, Laura has raised her hand. Jess, do you mind unmuting her? All right, Laura, you should be unmuted.
She'll need to unmute herself.
Thank you, Kayla. Kayla, is that the correct pronunciation of your name?
Yes, thank you. And I apologize for my mispronunciation of yours.
Oh, no, that's okay. No problem. No, I was just thinking it would be good. I know you mentioned we can share who we are in the separate groups, but since everyone who answered this survey is interested on sustainability, it will be good to know overall who is participating, because, for example, somebody mentioned about working with textiles, and we have looked for a place where we can better dispose or repurpose textiles, and I didn't know that solution was there or it's available. So knowing who is part of this group overall, maybe if you have us introduce ourselves, or where we're going, or I don't know, so that we can better connect and better support each other. And
Okay.
And the other point I want to make is that it's related, that we need a place where, a central hub, where we can have where we can find resources about how to promote sustainability, so that we don't recreate the wheel or feel that we are starting from zero when we start our efforts, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Completely, yes. And something that we can discuss is how can we provide the group information to each other. We can talk about adding into the survey that we'll send you guys today of if we can make your information public to the other stakeholder members, if you guys are willing to share that information, and potentially, what you have worked on or are interested in partnering with. So we'll definitely look into how we can promote the different stakeholders within the group, but of course, always asking your permission first.
Yeah, Laura, thank you for that too. I think it rings true to me that we have a site or a place where we can house all that information, because as we all know, nowadays we can get information readily, quickly, but sometimes it's not necessarily the right information. You can get overloaded pretty quickly. So we've talked a little bit about maybe creating, and again, this would be working probably with the leaders of the groups in terms of creating website. How do we keep that information in a kind of a logical way, in a system where everybody can see it? So I appreciate that comment, and yes, we're aware of that, and we're working to some solution to that.
All right. So we have Phoebe here ask a question of, is there any concern that overlap might create disjointed efforts to solve the same problems within these working groups? And yes, that is a very huge concern. I want to appreciate that, Phoebe, you pointed this out, because I know a lot of people have this same concern as well. And when we start talking with our working group leadership, the chair and co-chairs, we're going to get all the leadership on the same page to make sure that efforts are not being duplicated and that the correct conversations are happening with the correct working groups to make sure that everything's going to be as kind of turning the gears in the correct path forward.
Yeah, and I think as we mentioned before, this is going to be a true working group. We don't want it to be groups that just sit back and every so often meet to talk about some initiative but doesn't get anywhere. We really truly need this to be, like I said early on, get some tangible results. And so we're going to be working hard on this end as a support structure for this to ensure that if we do get some overlap, that we're working with that quickly to remedy. Do we need to bring two groups together more often? Do we need to just combine two groups? Do we need to split groups apart? All that we're going to be working diligently behind the scenes to make sure we address those sorts of issues quickly.
All right. Any other questions that we missed, Skylar?
No, but we just had Noah raise his hand.
Perfect. No, you should be unmuted, set to go.
Sweet. Hi. Thank you for the presentation. It's been super awesome getting to get a little bit more insight into everything and getting to know the organization and all the other stakeholders. I was actually just wondering, before I guess we even get into the specifics of which group we want to get into, I was wondering if you'd be able to share some of the examples that you feel are some of the biggest challenges that you've been running into, whether I guess it's like civilian versus legislative pushback or idea generation or even just effectiveness of these different solutions. It'd probably be helpful for determining where we'd best fit in.
No, I appreciate that. For me, it is, and just looking at it internally and then externally, the one thing that pops up most for me and the feedback I get is coordination. The lack of coordination is causing, I think, the inability, I guess, for a lack of a better way, to get, in my realm for the most part, policy change. And so it makes it difficult when we can't talk, or that when we're finally meeting you for the first time, but we have an issue in front of us. It's like, wait a second, I should have known Noah long ago, before this even happened. And this is, we've developed this last legislative session, for specific examples, some great relationships came out of that. But in a lot of ways, it's too late, right? Not moving forward, but back then it was a little bit too late. We were scrambling to try to figure out how we were going to, kind of change some of the policy that was coming out or be effective in that. So I think for me, and Kayla may have some different perspective on that, but that's why this meeting to me is so important, is the coordination effort. And then, our education outreach, is lacking. Skylar came on now in that capacity. I don't know, it's got a year and a half now, I'm not sure, but time flies when you're having fun. But so I think that's the second part of my passion is, how do we get that information out there? We can coordinate all day long, but then once we do that, that's great, but then we've got to get the information out. And so I think that's where we struggle as our own entity, agency, and as a state.
Yeah, I would hear that exact response.
Yeah, I would add to that. So with the Connecticut working groups that happened over the last year, so Connecticut, like Kayla mentioned earlier in the presentation, did something similar. And they came up with a menu of options, and some of the things they wanted to do was push for different laws and policy changes. And some of the things they weren't able to pass, but the legislators took notice on how this unified voice was behind a lot of these proposals and ideas. And they were just surprised. And so it's a force to be reckoned with, because you have so many people on the same page with a well thought out plan, and it's not these onesie twosies organizations trying to do it. So we're seeing, and Connecticut's group's only been around for a year, and if they're seeing positive changes and positive influences, just imagine what we can do here in Nevada.
Yeah, thanks, Bree. And to think about it too, the two that we showed you are kind of on the east side of the world, I guess, for lack of a better way. Nothing really happening on the West Coast that has to try to bring this initiative together, something like that. And so, I don't think, obviously right now we're going to step into an 11-state, Northeast, like they did in the Northeast, but you can just see the power that goes behind that when we have that unified, coordinated effort. And wow, what a way for Nevada to start that initiative. And, maybe 5 years from now, it is beginning to build into something much bigger. And when some of the neighboring states see what we're trying to do and see that the policies and different changes we can affect in sustainability, we envision that growth happening.
Gotcha.
That answer
Sweet.
your question, Noah?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it really does speak to why this is actually a very valuable enterprise to go on with. And I think it even with the addition of the validity of incorporating the government on top of all these other organizations is awesome. So yeah, very much appreciated. And thank you for answering my question.
Great.
Of course.
Thanks, Noah.
Thank you. All right, let's take a quick.
We're looking, Skylar, anything else popping up? Somebody else raised? Who we got?
We all set, Jess? All right, Susan, you should be all set to unmute yourself.
Thank you, and thank you again for organizing this great forum. I think this is going to be very interesting and fun, and hopefully very productive going forward. So I do have a question on how the final recommendations will be selected. Will they be voted on by each individual group or brought back to the entire group? It seems like it's sort of a similar process that the Southern Nevada Forum set up through the Las Vegas Chamber, Clark County, City of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and all the Southern Nevada legislators and interested businesses and industries and lobbyists. And what they do, they get together and they do sort of like what we have done here and what we'll continue to do by identifying, here are topics that we need to address: education, healthcare, whatever, economic development, and then what do we need to do within each of those? And different people go to different ones that they're interested in. But at the end of the game, everybody who's been participating gets to vote on these. So will we get to vote on it? For instance, if there's a policy issue that we'll be asking a legislator to carry a bill for us, will everybody who's been participating get to have a vote in this?
Want me to tackle that one? Yeah, Susan, hi, great to see you. Yes, the answer to that would be yes. We thought about this early on in the process about how that would look. We certainly we didn't want to kind of begin to formulate a lot of that. We wanted the groups to do that and this entire group as a whole. But yes, we envision that, I don't know, the policy working group say wants a specific piece of legislation. we develop that, we foster it, we bring it back to the group and say, what's everybody think? Do we want to move this particular one forward, and give kind of the reasons why. And so at that point, the group would have the ability to vote and move it forward.
That's great, because the Southern Nevada Forum's issues that they brought forward to the legislature have been very, very successful. The first year they did this, I think 4 legislative sessions ago, maybe 5, they had 17 or 19 bills that came out of the Southern Nevada Forum, and every single one passed. They haven't had quite the same success the last couple of sessions, but I think with new leadership at the chamber, they'll probably get there as well. So this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll work on the structure as we move forward and how all that looks and how all the kind of into the weeds sort of, how do we vote, that'll all be worked out as we kind of move forward with the leaders.
All right.
Anybody else?
Do we have any other raised hands? You're all good? I think we're set.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
So thank you again for taking time. I know we're all busy in trying to figure all this out and just in our day-to-day lives, and we really appreciate you taking the time. And we look forward to this initiative. We want it to move forward. It's going to move, we hope, fairly quickly in a kind of a organized format, I guess, maybe a little organized chaos at first, but we'll get through that and as we move forward. But again, thank you, and reach out to Kayla, myself, or Bree, and if you have any further questions or you want to talk a little bit further after this meeting, by all means. And again, we look forward to sending out the next survey fairly quickly and moving from there. I can't stress enough, if you really want to be a team lead, co-chair, chair, we would love that. We saw a lot of passion on here, a lot of people, I think, willing to do that. That's when the real work begins, I'll be honest, and as we all know, sometimes that's hard, but we're willing to take on that, and you got to move this forward. So please feel, please reach out and become a chair if you can. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. As Darren said, if you have any questions, reach out. We have the Unified Sustainable NV email. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.